Got review. It's hard to believe that it's been 8 years since this absolute masterpiece of television was released. Not to poison the well or anything. With Season 8 and the end of Game of Thrones lurking around the corner, I thought now would be a good time to procrastinate on a series of videos reviewing the existing 7 seasons of the show. I was going to do a rewatch anyway, so why not alienate my audience while I'm at it? I know I am but a lowly tinfoil theory channel who thinks that Sweet Robin was an abortion and Drogo was a horse, but today we're going to be putting the theoretical eye aside and focusing on something concrete. For once. It's quite the bomb diggity to go back and revel in the cathartic joy of the early seasons before descending into the deep, dark depths of the post-Gurm nonsense. Not to spoil my opinion on later seasons or anything, so without any further stalling for watch time, let's talk about what makes the first season of Game of Thrones tick. So let's just jump right into it, guys. From the opening shot of the first episode, you already know what you're in for. It's dark, it's slow, it's got a blue filter on it. There are 3 blokes and you don't know any of their names, you're not exactly sure where you are and what's going on, but boy howdy you're going to be excited when one of these idiots gets killed. Or 2. Just from the first shot, you know that this is a show that isn't afraid to pace things slowly to establish atmosphere, and a show that cares deeply about the design of everything. Just think about the level of detail and effort put into this single shot. Notice how Waymar Royce's clothes are finer than his companions because he's a highborn cunt and they're just regular cunts. He isn't holding a torch because he's their superior even though Garrett is much older. He has a sword at his waist where they don't. Even his horse looks nicer. Most of us take for granted how well produced and well directed this show is, so I think it's important to begin by appreciating this. Every scene in this show has this level of production quality, except for those I'll be noting as they come up. It's at a level that far exceeds the vast majority of television programs, especially for the time. They didn't need to include all of these details, but they did, and the show is far better for it. And the fucking horses. Do you know how hard it is to work with horses? I don't, but I'm assuming it's hell. I'm deathly afraid of all animals larger than a pangolin, but I once read on the inside of a bathroom stall door that Gurm was only so unreserved with his usage of horses in the books because he was confident this story would never be adapted to the screen. But HBO bit the bullet and fucking did it anyway. Anyway, moving on from the first shot, the opening minutes of episode 1 are eerie and atmospheric. The music alone tells you all you need to know about the situation these rangers are in, but add to that this creepy, lifeless forest and this giant fucking wall, and you've got a lot cooking in terms of intrigue and mystery. Who the fuck are these guys? What are they doing? Why are they wearing IKEA rugs? What's the deal with that giant fucking wall? Then Will finds a bunch of mutilated bodies and cool, that's terrific. Fucking Kodak moment right there, so he runs back to tell his mates about it. The ensuing first dialogue of the show is quite different from its counterpart in the book, but it's also fucking brilliant. It establishes so much so quickly without feeling at all expository. I could talk about a lot of things here, but most importantly I want to point out how present death is from the get-go of the show. Will bumps into a pile of dead bodies, and when he wants to run away so that whatever killed them doesn't kill him, his commander gladly reminds him that deserting is an executable offense and that he would have no qualms performing the punishment himself. Garrett handles freezing viscera before a freakish ice zombie ambushes Waymar. There is no questioning the stakes here. From the first scene, we know that this series isn't going to give its characters a free ride. Life in this world is tough, and death in this world is everywhere. Our first notable deviations from the books occur here. Firstly, Sir Waymar's death. In the Aegot prologue, he's a total badass who bravely faces off against a whole squad fam of others, whereas here he's a bitch who falls victim to the cutaway, "Ooh, what happened, death?" The other deviation, if you'll excuse the pun, is how the others are portrayed. In the books, hereafter known as The Song, the others are eerie, mystical, kind of beautiful spirits whose crystal armors and swords shimmer in the moonlight. In the show, henceforward known as Thrones, the White Walkers are scary blue dudes. Blues. Blue's tower defense 4. We'll get more into the differences when it becomes relevant to the show's quality in later seasons, but here both of these deviations work. Not to say that keeping the others as ethereal, ghostly creatures wouldn't work, but the change doesn't diminish anything at this point. More importantly, the bleaker depiction of Waymar's death in Thrones is more of a thematic success than its equivalent in the song. The lie of heroism is a huge theme in George's story. Most deaths are portrayed as unglamorous and largely wasteful, so it's a bit contradictory for Waymar's death to be this cool. It is a matter of interpretation though, and I know I haven't got the biggest dick when it comes to thematic analysis. I'll try to leave that to the Chad Thundercock Summerchilds of the world. What I really wanted to point out here is that even when Thrones deviates from the song, it's in a respectful and sensible manner that's still internally consistent, and might even enrich the narrative. Now, every show has a budget, and while Thrones' budget these days is fucking astronomical, in the beginning it was a bit more humble. Believe it or not, the success of this show was not a sure thing, so only a mere $5 to $10 million dues were spent on this pilot episode. While Thrones would later become renowned for its extreme long-form battles, here in these halcyon days we have a quick-cut chase scene where you can't really see what's going on. In my uninformed assessment though, the decision to make the scene like this seems stylistic, not financial. It works to oblique the threat and keep the intrigue up, and it's a common trope in scary situations in film, but it's common for a reason. At the end of it all, Will sees Garrett get decapitated, and we fade to black. No, I'm not going to talk about every scene for that long. Who do you think I am, Mauler? Heck, I'm not even going to talk about the rest of the season chronologically. I just wanted to use the opening scene to demonstrate the values at play in the production of this season, and I intend on doing the same for each season. Going forward, we're going to be looking at the season character by character, following one story from beginning to end, and then starting again at the next character. We'll start with the biggest players and then progressively chew on smaller stories. Consequently, some scenes will be covered a number of times, so I'll try to either examine those scenes from different angles each time.
We've got to do it from different angles!
Or at least keep them brief on repeat appearances. Oh, and while we're doing housekeeping, expect spoilers up to Season 7 of Thrones and all of the song from here on in. I contained myself up until now, but some of this season warrants consideration from hindsight. And with all of that out of the way, let's begin with the ostensible main character of Season 1.
I'm a melancholy man. That's what I am. All the world surrounds me and my feet are on the ground. I'm a very lonely
The man himself. Scene being Sean-born Boromir, son of Denethor. He was in a Bond film, I think, and he taught me how to play Civ 6.
I don't believe in astrology. I'm a Sagittarius, and we're skeptical.
But most importantly, he ushered us all into Westeros with his portrayal of Daddy Stark, who I think most people can agree is the main character of Season 1, even though, yeah. So who is Eddard, and what is his story? The first scene featuring any of our main characters wasn't in the song, and it sets an astounding precedent for the quality of Benioff and Weiss's writing. It's a great introductory scene for a lot of reasons, but let's stick to Eddard. We're introduced to this man who is shown to be both a Ned, a compassionate, understanding and patient father,
Keep practicing, Bran.
and Lord Stark, a grim, duty-bound voice of the law.
Swore an oath, cat.
It's this dual nature to Eddard that compels much of his story. Eddard's story begins with a beheading. Here, it's Will. In the song, it's Garrett. Doesn't matter. Right off the bat, we're given some examples of Ned's dual natures clashing. Clearly, Ned takes no pleasure in executing Will, but Lord Stark must uphold the word of the law in the name of his king. Then Lord Stark is worried by the foreboding presence of direwolves south of the wall, but Ned isn't going to make his son watch these puppies die.
Unhand them, squidling.
But the children will have to raise the wolves themselves. Ned is all about personal responsibility. It's also interesting to see how prepared Lord Stark was to kill Will, who had broken the law, but how easily swayed Ned is from killing the direwolves. He's a man who values justice highly, and he's a man of honor.
The man who passes the sentence should swing the sword.
All of this information central to Eddard's character is communicated to us in a matter of minutes. It's all subtle, organic, and relevant to the story. So already we have concern for your family clashing with concern for societal structures. We have personal responsibility, justice, and honor. Ned's first reaction to learning that the man who raised him is dead is to inquire about the man's family.
Your sister, the boy.
Ned values the concern of others higher than he values the concern for himself, something we'll see play out quite drastically. Eddard in the song is ecstatic about his best friend Robert visiting Winterfell, but here in Thrones he's a deal more grim about the situation. In the song, much of Eddard's story up until Robert's death is about discovering who his best friend has become, and the two of them falling out. This dynamic carries less significance in Thrones because Ned doesn't seem to think that highly of Robert to begin with. Ned neither punishes nor rewards Arya for playing soldier as Robert's entourage arrives. He takes the helm away, not necessarily because she's a girl, but because the fucking king's here and we have to take this shit seriously. Eddard greets the king as Lord Stark,
Your Grace.
but a super hilarious fat joke breaks the ice and the two are back to being Bobby and Ned. Bobbo meets the family and Lord Stark greets this bitch. It's pretty clear that where Ned and Bob are close friends outside of their relation in the feudal structure, Stark's only connection with Cersei is that she is the queen. As in, this doesn't feel like someone greeting their friend's wife. Then Ned buggers off with Robbo to look at a skeleton, leaving all of these people just standing here. Bolbert asks Ned to be his hand. Eddard responds as Lord Stark,
I'm not worthy of the honor.
but B-word instead appeals to Ned. At Lyanna's statue, Ned reinforces his strong connection to family,
She was my sister.
even though it's weird that Lyanna is in the crypts at all, and then insists that the Targaryens are gone. Without knowing what's ahead, it feels like Ned is just against pointless bloodshed, but with the hindsight of future seasons, we know there's a very good reason Ned doesn't want Robert looking for Targaryens. It's an example of Ned prioritizing his family in Jon over the law in Robert. In this extra scene, we see Ned at his most Boromirish talking with Benjen at the feast. The two don't see each other often, but instead of properly catching up with Benno, Ned asks him about Will. Instantly jumping to this shows us that Ned listened to Will's last words and cares about them more than he cares about how his brother is. Then this fucker gets a word in to try and size Ned up. In the song, Jaime is only 3 years younger than Ned, but Nikolai is 11 years younger than Sean, and you can tell. Jaime calls Ned an old man, and then Ned says that he'll fuck Jaime's shit up if need be. Smirky McGurky likes the sound of that. This is some fun, if not slightly unnecessary, setup for their boss fight. Later, Boromir and Hermione's mum are in bed having a chat about how he's going to respond to Robert's offer. The dilemma here is duty to authority
King takes what he wants.
versus duty to family.
You are not taking my husband anywhere.
Snuggle time is interrupted by Luwin with some shocking news. Lysa sent a rider in the night somehow and for some reason with a message saying Jon Arryn was murdered by the Lannisters. Ned doesn't want to believe it and totally calls Lysa having gone bananas,
She's fresh widowed, Cat. She doesn't know what she's saying.
but Cat convinces him it's legit. This heightens the stakes of the dilemma, with neither choice for Ned seeming like a good one. Now, in addition to choosing between family and authority, he has to choose between protecting himself and protecting Robert. Blob thanks Ned for accepting his request, acknowledging how tough the decision was and how Ned is the last friend he has. Ned's decision here places authority over family, but we'll see how that same question is answered when even more is on the line. Before leaving for a hunt, Ned meets Bran's eyes for a final time. Ned walks in on a pretty fucking tense moment between his missus and his bastard over Coma Bran. Ned has the knowledge to defuse their relationship, but that knowledge would endanger everybody, so he's forced to watch both his wife and the boy he was entrusted to protect suffer for the greed of other men. Cat begs Ned one last time to stay at Winterfell, but Ned has made up his mind. As they're all leaving, Ned has a cheeky extra scene with Jono to pretty much say that he's proud of him. Jon wants to talk about his mum, but Ned knows that that kettle of fish is best left to tinfoil theorists, saying they'll clear it up in season 6. I've always thought that a part of Ned knew that they'd never see each other again.
I promise.
Blob and Ned talk about how duty prevents them from fulfilling their dreams, and Ned allows a rare glimpse of BDE to shine through.
I've never had the chance to be young.
I recall a few chances.
The topic of Jon's mother comes up, Big B saying,
Must have been a rare wench to make Lord Eddard Stark forget his honour.
he's absolutely right, but in a beautifully wrong way. Ned is tight-lipped because Robert is the last person he wants to know the truth of it. Some banter between mates before Blorb pulls out a message about Dany's wedding to Drogo. Ned tries to dismiss it, but Blorb is adamant that something must be done. The ensuing argument does so much to establish characters, conflicts, and the setting. I think it's the best scene in Kingsroad. Yes, even better than this one. Ned's insistence that Dany and Viserys should be left alone, a position he never wavers from, seems to only be about wanting to avoid bloodshed and the murder of children, but really what's going on here is... Wait, is that it? Huh. After the Micah incident, Ned leads the search for Arya late into the night, but she's been found and taken to Cersei. Upon reaching the scene, Ned first comforts his daughter and makes sure she's okay, and then he starts worrying about the implications. Family first. He stands up for his family, outraged that Arya was taken here instead of straight to him. Blabbo, and this is a shock, acts as mediator, almost as though he's the king or something. There's a he says, she says between Maisie and this dipshit, and Ned has to witness Cersei's manipulation of Sansa. Ned is made to look like an incompetent father when his daughters start fighting, but as Robert, who is nailing it today, points out,
Children fight.
the fathers agree to discipline their own children, but then Ned gets his first real glimpse of how much of a bitch this bitch is. Ned does the deed himself out of honor,
She deserves better than a butcher.
but beforehand he's confronted with the extreme darkness he's heading into. This is what honor gets you where you're going, Ned.
If there are no dogs in heaven, then when I die, I want to go where they went.
The second Eddard gets into King's Landing, he's asked to do shit. Guy can't take half a minute to put his feet up. This fucker springs an extra scene on him, and while they keep talking about the yardstick, neither wants to put their dick on the table quite yet. Eddard judges Jaime harsher than anyone else. Ned values honor, loyalty, and law, and his perception of the Kingslayer couldn't care any less about these things. Ned meets the small council and wears his opinions on his sleeves. He's an honest man, except when handling the direst of secrets. He meets the best character for the first time, who chooses now to bring up how in love with Ned's wife he was/is. Some old geezer is there too, and Ned gives him shit for being a turnrobe. This old, ancient, decrepit, useless, smelly old man gives Ned his handpin, and then the meeting begins.
Without the king?
Yes, Ned, your friend is a hack. Ned learns that to put on an attorney he doesn't want, they'll have to spend money they don't have. Ned walks in on Arya being a violent murderer, not to jump the gun or anything, and sends her away so he can deal with the other one. He gives Sansa a toy she hates. Don't worry, Ned, I don't understand women either.
War was easier than daughters.
He then finds Arya playing with an actual real-life sword, you know, those weapons people use to kill each other with. They have a cute father-daughter D&M about Micah, the incident on the Kingsroad, and the importance of being there for your family. Ned lets Arya keep the sword. He knows not all girls are meant to become ladies. This smelly old useless homeless old man gives Ned a thing about some kid waking up. Peter pulls some absolutely epic shit and conjures Cat out of thin fucking air. Ned doesn't take kindly to the notion that his wife's in a whorehouse and almost prevents a whole heap of hassle, but unfortunately Peter isn't lying just this one time. He and Cat catch Ned up on the whole Catspaw situation, and the dagger I guess we're just pretending is Tyrion's. Peter is really upfront about how much of a dirty shitbag he is, but Ned trusts him anyway because Cat said to. Ned assumes people to be honourable. That's just his lens, and harbouring Cat has put Peter in his good graces. Cat has to leave because it's sus as that she's in King's Landing, and Ned outlines his plan to her. Find proof of Lannister treachery, present it to Robert, and hope that Robert is
The man I once knew.
We are now deep into territory where honour becomes naivety. Ned tells Cat to keep safe and watch her temper because we could all do with some foreshadowing every now and then, and works hard for that promotion from Captain to Major Obvious.
He still loves you.
They share one last long embrace before parting ways, never to see each other again. And again, it looks like part of Ned knows that. Ned observes Arya's first lesson with Syrio and gets a bit PTSD'd. He's apprehensive about introducing his daughter to danger, but if it weren't for Sirio's teachings, Arya never would have made it out of King's Landing. The small council hears Janos Slint, henceforth known as on the matter of crime increased due to the Hands tourney.
Last night we had a tavern riot, a brothel fire, 3 stabbings and a...
Ned is learning how to hand, getting shit done all proper like. After the meeting, Stark probes Dustvane's about Jon Arryn's death, gets some suspicions about poison, gets the giant-ass book, and learns Jon's cryptic last words.
The seed is strong, I think it was.
The seed is strong.
The seed is strong.
The seed is strong.
The seed
Is strong.
The seed is strong.
Strong.
I think it was.
The seed is strong.
No, I don't think it likely.
Before Ned can hand the question, he gets sidetracked by another player doing some weird shit. Arya asks about the consequences of Bran's fall, and Ned tells her all the things he could still do with his life. Arya likes the sound of that shit and asks if she can have a go, but Ned says probs not because you have to spec into a male build to unlock those feats. He tells her the feudal lady class outline, and Arya asks for a reroll. Ned doesn't impose these rolls upon her. He knows all too well not all girls are meant to become ladies. Ned hands in his quest and Littlefinger coughs up the next one in the chain. He also gives Ned the passive skill that marks spies on the minimap, dishes out a classic one-liner, and vanishes in a puff of smoke. Briefly, Jory meets with Jon Arryn's squire and comes to the shocking realization that he's a total cunt. Ned goes to Tobbo Mott's smithy and asks to have what Jon Arryn had, and boy, I'd like some of that too. Ned rolls a nat 20 on his perception and instantly realizes that Gendry is Robert's bastard. Not everybody keeps theirs around. King Glorbo finally says what we've all been thinking.
Start the damn zows before I piss myself.
And that cunt from earlier gets shafted by the unit. So maybe put a pin in that interview. Then this bitch stops by for an extra scene. There's some small talk, but Ned can't stand that shit, so Cersei starts laying down some truths. She outlines that Ned follows authority and stands by honor as a virtue.
You're just a soldier, aren't you?
Ned adds that he also defends what he stands for, but so does Cersei. I count 4 shadows. Deadly Nedley goes to have a chat with Barristan motherfucking Selmy over this cunt's corpse. Ned reckons there's some shifty shit going on around Hugh, but can't reach a conclusion yet. Next on the agenda, the Orb wants to do a joust, and what follows is the funniest scene in the season, if not the show's whole run.
Go find the breastplate stretcher. Now!
Ned appeals to Robert's pride to prevent him from what could happen if he were to joust. They're friends in this scene. Robert's drunk, but he's mirthful, jovial, he's in on the joke. Whatever differences the two have had so far, I haven't pulled them apart just yet. Ned watches Justin Bieber hand his fangirlish daughter a rose, and my, this is subtle. Better make sure the audience notices this. I'm sure they got it. The unit's horse is also a fangirl, so the unit gets reamed and Peter shatters Sansa's illusions of honor in knighthood. Thanks man, I was trying to raise her to respect honor, but okay. Also, why did you bet on the unit when you knew Bieber was cheating? That doesn't really make any sense. Varys, or however you pronounce it, drops by to have some ominous words with Ned. Hugh was set up, Jon was murdered, Robert is in danger, and now Ned is also in danger. Arya warns Ned that someone said they were going to kill him and shit, backing it up by saying stuff she could only know from overhearing some spooky fellas. Then Yoren comes in and tells Ned that Cat has captured Tyrion Lannister. What a day.
They said it was just gonna be an easy grab. Well, it ain't no easy grab. They got teeth.
Luckily, the meeting the king has called isn't about that, it's about some other fatal situation. The Dany thing has come up again. She's pregnant this time and Robert is all knives. Only Ned dissents, citing the assassination prospect as dishonorable. Robert cracks the shits at the concept of honor governing a country, and Ned compares him to Aerys. Gulp. Ned tries to discount the word of Jorah Mormont, but they're not having it. The council is unanimous.
I understand your misgivings, my
I
lord.
bear this
Truly,
girl
I
no
do.
ill will,
It
but
is
should
a
the
terrible
Dothraki
thing we must
invade,
consider,
how
a
many
vile
innocents
thing.
will die?
Yet we
How
who
many
presume to rule
towns will
must
burn?
sometimes
When you find yourself in
improvise
bed
things
with
for the good
Clean
of
day.
the
Close your
realm.
eyes.
That she
Get
should
it
die
over.
Should
now.
the gods grant Daenerys
Cut out
some
throats.
Should have had them both
the
killed
realm
years
might
ago.
live.
Ned then accuses Robert of cowardice. Big off. Robert is unwavering. Ned is unwavering. Ned resigns. Robert threatens to execute him. So why does Ned feel so strongly about not killing Daenerys to the point where he's endangered his own life and those of his daughters? Is it the principle of murdering people who are nominally innocent? He does say that doing this would make them no better than the Mad King, so it really does seem like something of principle rather than any specific case. Down to brass tacks, Ned holds honor above authority and even above his own life. A noble thing. A naive thing. Ned wants to leave right this minute, but Littlefinger gives him another quest in the murder mystery chain, Robert's last bastard and Jon Arryn's last visit. Peter is coy about Jon's reasons for visiting these people, and boy I wonder why. Jory gets one last good memory before they leave. And then shit gets real. Jaime is red hot ready to rumble and all fucked off because of what Cat did. You're not the only one who cares about family, Ned. He claims responsibility, a kind thing to absolve his wife, but dangerously selfless. Then we finally get to see Boromir in action again. All these guys die, then Jaime stabs Jory right through the fucking eye. Jesus. The boss fight begins, and while Ned is taking it super serial, guys, Jaime is having the time of his life. No wonder he smacks this guy upside the head when he ruins the fun. It's at this point in the song that Ned dreams of the Tower of Joy, but that's been moved much further down the line in Thrones. He is somehow cognizant enough after just waking up to hold a crazy serious conversation with Robert and Cersei. Cersei's a lying bitch who accuses her husband of not standing up for himself, then gets all pissy when he stands up for himself.
You win!
Robert recognizes that violence was not the answer to his predicament, but it's all he really knows. He puts his fist down and commands Ned to have Cat release Tyrion and to make peace with Jaime. Ned still wants to return to Winterfell, but Robert pulls the take-backsies on that whole thing, reinstating him as Hand and telling him to rule while he goes on a hunt. Ned asks about Dany and Robert tells him to get the fuck over it.
Fish!
On the word of a sage peasant and guided by the trustworthy counsel of his good friend Peter Baelish, our brave hero uses his capacity as acting ruler to begin a continental civil war.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
By giving Tywin Lannister an ultimatum, Ned forces his hand, but damn the consequences. Ned sees injustice and uses whatever power he has to make it just, even if it costs him his life. Such is the story of a boundlessly honorable man. Knowing the danger he's in, Ned tells his girls he's sending them home. But Arya can't leave because she has lessons with Syrio, and Sansa can't leave because she loves Joffrey, which is weird because just last week she wouldn't shut up about how much she hates him, but that's women for you.
What?
In her ramblings, she points out that Joffrey is nothing like Robert, and Ned finally gets it. Mendel has a quick look at his peas, and sure enough, this pea is all incesty. He's so excited by his discovery that he wants to tell Cersei all about it. This conversation showcases each of their core values. Ned values the truth and honor, telling Cersei what he intends on doing and warning her to flee to avoid the bloodshed. In response, Cersei tells Ned that the truth doesn't matter, only winning. She values power, power that she can wield. Unfortunately, Cersei's correct. Ned is informed by Renly that King Glorbo is about to go cactus. On his last legs, big boy Bob tries to set up the transitional period. He tells Ned to rule as regent until this dipshit comes of age, but Ned defies his king and writes the rightful heir instead, valuing honor and truth over authority. Blobbert has a change of heart concerning Daenerys, validating Ned for speaking up against him and confirming that honor trumps authority. He begs Ned to help his son become better than he was, and Ned can't bring himself to tell his best friend that he's a giant cuck. It's dishonorable to break a dying man further. Finally, Robert asks Ned to let him die. Barristan motherfucking Selmy confides that he feels responsible for Robert's death, but Varys makes it pretty clear that Bobby was moided. Ned instructs him to unassassinate Dany, but that's not how that works. Smelling the chaotic opportunity of a dying king, Renly tries to rope Ned into his scheme to make himself king. Ned's response is incredulity, as Westeros has agnatic primogeniture and you can't change the law if you have any negative vassal opinions. Renly says that the line of succession didn't matter in Robert's rebellion, which I always found a bit funny because it kind of did. He tells Ned that if they don't make their move soon, Cersei wins the game, but Ned still doesn't want to play. He respects Stannis, but Renly questions the idea of good soldiers being kings. Ned, of course, is the ideal soldier and has just been named, in effect, king, and the one decision he's made in his ruling capacity was to begin a civil war. And while that war was probably going to happen either way, I'm kind of with Renly on this one. After writing his pen pal Stannis, Ned tries to explain feudal succession to Peter, but he doesn't seem to get it either.
Unless...
There is no unless.
Peter's plan is to keep Joffrey in their control and rule through him, but Ned's vision of justice is so strong that he refuses to make peace with the Lannisters for crippling Bran. So on Peter's promise to Cat that he would help him, Ned asks for the support of the Goldcloaks in asserting proper succession, basically asking him to do a coup. Peter says that sounds like fun because he's never done a coup before. Peter tells Ned that the Watch is with him, and Varys says that Renly has jumped town. Smart move, this Renly fella seems to have his head on straight. For some reason all the Kingsguard are wearing helmets except for Barristan. Yeah, he doesn't need one. This dipshit demands fealty, and Ned presents the document naming him Lord Protector. He does this through Barristan, the only other honourable person here, because Ned still thinks that honour matters. Cersei proves for once and all that we're done with that shit, and Peter is all too eager to reinforce that. Ugh, and his men slaughter Ned's men, and Peter pulls a very non-Valyrian steel dagger on Ned and ties everything up with a beautiful bow.
Distrusting me was the wisest thing you've done since you climbed off your horse.
Did warn you not to trust me.
Varys visits Ned in the naughty box, somehow. Ned must have a lot of things to ask, but his first order of business is, as always, family. Varys says Arya has escaped the Red Keep and Sansa is in Cersei's custody. Ned tries to guilt Varys over the coup, but he's not having that and turns it around to guilt Ned some.
What madness led you to tell the Queen you had learned the truth about Joffrey's birth? It was your mercy that killed the king.
He tells Ned he's boned, but Ned reckons Cersei can't bone him so long as Cat could counter-bone Tyrion in retaliation. Turns out that's fallen through though. Ah, yup, you're boned. In the next very crucial scene, some arsehole kicks Ned awake and waves a torch in his face. That's the whole scene. Then Varys visits Ned one last time to catch him up on things. Robb has raised his banners, Stannis is poised to strike, and Varys pushes Ned to do what he can to quell the fires. Cersei would let him take the black, he insists. Ned doesn't give a shit. Honor is more important to him than even his life. Varys plays his trump card though and wagers Ned's honor against his daughter's life. And one last time, in the final decision he makes, we see what Ned holds the dearest to his heart, the one thing that is more important to him than honor: family. Dragged outside the Sept, Ned sees Arya on Baelor's statue and manages to tell Yoren. Ned betrays his honor and what he knows is true to protect his daughters, proclaiming Joffrey as king. And though Ned traded his honor for his life, this is what you get when you make deals with the devil.
Sir Ilyn! Bring me his head!
Ned's story ends with a beheading.
Part 2 in like a month, maybe. We'll be talking about Tyrion and Jon and Dany if there's time. I don't know. Maybe just subscribe and you'll find out. Bye.